Disturbing audio, allegedly, of a Pikesville High School principal making racially charged comments.
I'm gonna drag his black out of here one way or another.
Why some think it could be fake, as Fox 45 News Project Baltimore presses for answers. The governor announcing new plans to make Maryland safer, including more funding for DJS. We press him on how the state will pay for it and break down how much this could cost you.
Were any DJS programs cut?
Then juvenile violence continues in Baltimore. A teen is shot in the face near a Safe Streets location.
It's disturbing.
A city councilman sounds off on where leaders are falling short.
We're putting monies into programming that are not working.
Tracking another blast of winter. I'll break down the chance for snow and how much we could get.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Fox 45 is following three big stories tonight at 10 o'clock. Shocking new audio out of Baltimore County allegedly captures the principal of Pikesville High School making racially charged remarks about his students.
I seriously don't understand why I have to constantly put up with these dumb here every day. Between these ungrateful black kids who can't test their way out of a paper bag.
Baltimore County Schools has launched an investigation. Our Project Baltimore team has a full report coming up.
We're tracking our next weather maker and the potential for more snow heading into the weekend. Meteorologist Wyatt Everhart is standing by with your forecast.
And it's another busy day in Annapolis as Governor Wes Moore lays out his budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Governor Moore's proposed 2025 budget for $63.1 billion is about $1 billion reduction from the state's current budget.
The governor says his budget makes key investments in four main areas. He wants to make Maryland safer, more competitive, more affordable, and he wants to encourage Marylanders to serve.
We know that budgets, they are moral documents. Where we choose to invest actually defines our values. And we will achieve each of these goals without raising taxes on Marylanders.
The governor says he's focusing on the future, promising to fully fund the state's blueprint for education, or the Kerwin plan. He's allocating $160 million in additional funds for low-income students. The governor announced $1.8 billion, $1.8 million for the Small Business Innovation Research and $500,000 for the Pavel Lapierre Innovation Acceleration Grant Program. The state's rainy day fund will sit at $2.3 billion, which remains within the recommended savings level. Governor Moore announced that he's pulling $150 million from the fund to offset a transportation deficit, despite a warning from former Governor Hogan as he left office.
It would be a mistake for the legislature to use its newly expanded budgetary power to return to the old habits of raiding the rainy day fund or recklessly spending down the surplus.
The governor says dipping into the rainy day fund won't become a pattern, but taxpayer advocates say taking the money from the state's emergency fund is dangerous.
If the governor is able to raid the rainy day fund for his pet transportation projects, what's next? What will individual members of the state legislature do, and what will they ask for, and how will they pay for that potentially through the rainy day fund?
The governor's proposal decreases the structural deficit by more than 50%, down to $500 million.
Well, the governor's funding plan for the Department of Juvenile Services is a key part of his budget. Tonight, we have team coverage of the governor's goals for DJS as the department's leaders facing some pushback on his juvenile crime views. We begin with Mackenzie Frost pressing the governor on his funding breakdown.
Here's just one part of the current proposed budget from Governor Wes Moore, and in it we're seeing how the governor plans to make some investments into public safety. And what we're learning is that the Department of Juvenile Services appears to be getting even more funding this upcoming year.
It's budget day in Annapolis.
Today's an important day.
And that means digging through the numbers. One of the biggest priorities for Governor Wes Moore.
This is a public safety crisis.
The governor rolling out several proposals to improve public safety. $127 million for local law enforcement agencies. That's $5 million more than last year. $10 million for his new Center for Firearm Prevention and Intervention, and an additional $16 million for programming inside the Department of Juvenile Services.
Now, I know there will be robust debates throughout the entire session on juvenile justice, and our administration will be an active participant in these conversations.
Amid the controversy surrounding effectiveness within DJS, Moore says he believes in accountability and consequences for young offenders.
But if we put children into a system that makes them more likely to commit crime, we're doing it wrong.
That's why he's pushing for more funding for programming. The top line number for DJS's budget, $338 million for budget year 2025, which is up from the 2024 appropriation of $326 million. Governor Moore asking lawmakers to approve $4.4 million to expand DJS's Thrive Academy from 190 juveniles to 300 statewide. $12 million in new funding for enhanced community services, and $3 million in new funding for assisted outpatient treatment. We tried to get some answers from the governor about finding funding for those increases.
Were any DJS programs cut?
Yes, I think you'll see throughout the budget that we were able to take a fine-tooth comb at every single one of our agencies and understand what is the best and the most proper use of taxpayer dollars.
Can you tell us any programs that were cut within DJS?
Yeah, I think again, as you're going through the budget, you'll be able to see the analysis that went through with every single aspect of not just DJS, but every department within the Maryland State government.
Not really a direct answer. Later, state officials explaining agencies overall shifted money around, and the state is rebasing or going back to funding levels prior to the infusion of federal dollars during the pandemic for some programs.
This budget is a reflection of our shared aspirations. We are going to realize these aspirations in a fiscally responsible way.
To see that realization, it's now up to lawmakers to navigate the path forward. Passing a balanced budget is the only thing lawmakers are constitutionally required to do during session.
This budgeting process is just beginning. Republicans are out with a statement saying that they are glad to see there are no proposed tax increases, but warn about the possibility of fee increases, saying this proposal is not a long-term fix to the budget concerns. Meanwhile, the Senate will have the first opportunity to make some changes, and then the proposal will head to the House. In the State House, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And we're taking a closer look at some of these public safety funding initiatives. As Mackenzie just mentioned, the governor's budget includes $127 million for law enforcement agencies. The Baltimore Police Department is one of many across the state and country facing an officer shortage. It's offering financial incentives to recruit more officers, and the money in the budget could help with that. However, some law enforcement experts that we've heard from say it's not just about the money.
I think the biggest thing that's plaguing the recruitment effort in Baltimore is really the actions of the public officials themselves failing to support the men and women of law enforcement.
Well, critics point to Maryland lawmakers stripping away the officers' Bill of Rights in 2022, setting stricter rules for how police are investigated and disciplined, a measure former Governor Larry Hogan vetoed, but it was overruled. Then there is the $10 million for the governor's new Center for Firearm Prevention and Intervention. Critics argue Maryland already has a similar program that gets $10 million each year. 2 years ago, an audit of the program revealed it had contributed $2.5 million to hire staffers for the Safe Streets program. Some are worried about where this $10 million could end up.
And we see just the very recent past that the nonprofits in Baltimore City are not helping the crime situation. And in fact, there are more questions than answers when it comes to these nonprofits receiving money. And this could be a massive waste of taxpayer money if he sends this money to the nonprofits.
The governor is also asking lawmakers for just over $4 million to expand the Thrive Academy within DJS. The program is modeled after Baltimore City's group violence reduction strategy, which provides services and supervision for people who show a potential for violence. The city first launched GVRS in the Western District, which saw more lives lost to violence than any other district in the city last year.
He is copying the wrong answers from the dumbest kids in the class.
We can't allow the Thrive Academy to be the substitute for violent individuals who have shown a propensity towards it and think that's the way we deal with them.
Tomorrow, Baltimore County Delegate Nino Mangione is planning to introduce a bill that would create more transparency from elected leaders when it comes to raising taxes and fees in Maryland.
I think citizens obviously have a right to know how their elected officials are voting And they especially have a right to know whether or not their elected officials are voting to raise taxes or fees.
That brings us to our question of the day. With a looming budget deficit, what should lawmakers do? Raise taxes or shrink government? 97% of those who voted say shrink government. To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Governor Moore is standing by the work of DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi amid concerns from Schiraldi's current and former colleagues.
Vincent Schiraldi was a disaster. I'm telling you, as God is my witness, I could not believe what I saw.
I know that I've reached out to him on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, there has been a level of unresponsiveness.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live with questions for the governor. Jeff.
Well, questions continue to surface tonight about the previous job performance of Maryland's Juvenile Services Secretary, and so do questions about his hiring here in Maryland.
Secretary Schiraldi understands accountability, and he demands it.
While the governor calls him a reformer, those who worked with Vincent Schiraldi last are calling him something else.
Vincent Schiraldi was a disaster.
He lied to us about violence.
He promised things he never delivered, and he actually lied about the stats because we proved it.
From the New York City councilman who oversaw corrections to the union chief who oversaw correctional officers, both insist Schiraldi, who served 7 months as New York City's corrections commissioner, left New York's Rikers Island in critical condition.
He came in here with this mindset of providing everything for the inmate population and not providing things that we needed. Wasn't concerned about our well-being at all.
Nobody thought he did a good job. Nobody can say that he improved the criminal justice system or the jails in New York City. He made them much worse, period.
A year after leaving the New York Post, Governor Wes Moore appointed Schiraldi to lead Baltimore's Department of Juvenile Services.
I can't believe somebody would hire this guy to what we've been through in New York City. It just shows you there was a lack of really vetting this person.
For the past week, we've been asking the governor's office similar questions. What steps did the administration take to vet DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi? Is Governor Moore aware of the humanitarian crisis that occurred on Rikers Island during his leadership? After the fallout in New York, we ask, are DJS facilities in Maryland fully staffed? And what actions have the administration taken to ensure public safety here? The governor's office has not replied, but has indicated that questions about Schiraldi's past have already been answered.
Now, we still have a lot of work to do. But if there's anyone who is up to the job, it's our Secretary of Juvenile Services, Vinny Schiraldi.
For now, Maryland's governor is standing behind his appointee, but in New York,
the governor is living in the bizarro world because it couldn't be furthest from the truth that Schiraldi is the answer.
In my tenure, he's got to be the worst commissioner we've had.
Schiraldi was the only appointee in the governor's cabinet that did not draw the full support of the legislature. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Last night, we asked if you think Governor Moore should reconsider replacing DJS Secretary Vincent Schiraldi. 98% of people who voted said yes.
Cold conditions. I mean, that really was the story today. Temperatures only into the upper 20s for the most part, staying below freezing. And tonight, we've got wind chill factors out there, just even with a light west breeze down in the teens. So definitely a code blue kind of a night out there. Big picture wise, quiet weather here tonight and tomorrow, but all eyes on our next storm system as it continues to develop out there in the Pacific Northwest, the northern Rocky states, getting snow from that system, tracking in our direction, but not getting here tonight or tomorrow. Friday will be a different story. After a somewhat milder Thursday, we've got a wintry Friday on tap. We'll talk more about the potential snow totals coming up.
Well, stay with us as our Fox 45 weather team tracks this next weather maker over the next 48 hours. Wake up tomorrow with meteorologist Amy Aronson on the Fox 45 Morning News starting at 4:30 a.m.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock. As campaign finance reports come in, mayoral candidates are getting out to talk with voters. The issues top of the mind during a meet and greet with Sheila Dixon. A Baltimore City councilman is taking a stand on juvenile crime after a 17-year-old was shot in his district. The changes he says need to be made in his criticism of the Safe Streets program. And Project Baltimore is working to find the truth after a Baltimore County school principal is accused of making racially charged comments. We have the latest on this developing story after the break.
Israel confirms 253 hostages were taken by Hamas during the initial attack on October 7th, and 130 hostages are still in Gaza. It is the first time Israel has given a firm number of the hostages. This comes as a bipartisan group of U.S. senators says the U.S. cannot forget about those hostages and should continue supporting Israel until they are freed.
Maryland lawmakers are pushing back on incidents of anti-Semitism across the state as 20 members of the General Assembly form a Jewish caucus. Today, Fox 45 News spoke with several members of the caucus who say their aim is to work with other caucuses. They'll likely consider legislation related to education, anti-Semitism, security, and civil liberties for all Maryland residents.
When there are incidents of hate or intolerance, regardless of whether they're, targeting specifically the Jewish community, but they might be targeting the African-American community, the Muslim community, that we speak out.
That's our goal. And, if you've got 20 people committed to that goal with the support of leadership, I certainly believe we might not be able to get all of our goals accomplished year one. I definitely believe we will make inroads.
In Baltimore City, council members failed to pass 2 resolutions condemning hate surrounding the Israel-Hamas war last month. The first resolution, focusing on anti-Semitism, did not pass after 4 council members abstained. They argued support for the Palestinian people should have also been included. A resolution condemning all forms of hate was proposed 3 days later, but that also did not pass.
We will not be silent. There have been many people in the city of Baltimore that have experienced hate, Jewish and also Islamic.
This resolution says to release hostages that are being held in Israel. I've never heard that before. The first time I've ever seen that was in this resolution.
Well, Jewish legislators at the city and state level tell Fox 45 News that they are interested in working with their non-Jewish colleagues to pass laws protecting all Marylanders. Jury selection underway in Marilyn Mosby's second federal trial. The former Baltimore City state's attorney faces 2 charges of making false statements on a loan application relating to her purchase of Florida vacation homes during the pandemic. If Mosby is found guilty, she could face decades in prison. Attorney Jeremy Eldridge, who's not affiliated with the case, joined us on Fox 45 News at 4 to talk about the possibility of Mosby taking the stand.
From that, certain types of cases almost demanded in practice, and this is one of them. How is Marilyn Mosby going to get her story in front of the jury? This is what I was living through at the time. This is what was going on with the taxes, and in order to tell that story, it's got to be her or Nick, and we've already saw what happened once where she chose not to take the stand.
Mosby already faces up to 10 years in prison after 2 perjury convictions in November. That trial took 10 days, and Eldridge anticipates a similar timeline this time around, depending on if Mosby takes the stand. She won't be sentenced until the conclusion of this mortgage fraud trial. Fox 45 News has been following Mosby's legal saga for years. Head to foxbaltimore.com for our complete coverage.
Well, the bitter cold continues, no question about that. Wind chill factors have been in the teens most of the day, and that continues tonight, even as the winds let up somewhat. We've got such bitterly cold air out there. It is definitely a code blue kind of a night. Now, big picture-wise, all eyes to the west and our next weather maker. What kind of impact will this storm have to Maryland come Friday? We'll detail that straight ahead.
And as we head to break, Wyatt, this is a look at Towson and Baltimore County. Baltimore City officials announced the city police department has reached full compliance on 2 aspects of the consent decree, the agreement between the city police department and the U.S. Justice Department, which has been in place since 2017, following an investigation into unconstitutional policing following the death of Freddie Gray. The complaint areas are officer assistance and support and transportation of persons in custody. Commissioner Richard Worley says the latter is significant because prosecutors argued Freddie Gray died while being transported by police. He died a few days later, but they argue he was injured in that van when transported to the hospital. But Worley says the work isn't finished, especially as the department deals with the shortage of nearly 600 officers.
What is your plan to get more boots on the ground in the immediate?
We're doing everything we can. The $10,000 incentive, recruitment's going to be bolstered up. So a lot of things we're moving forward to try to get more police officers here.
Well, the $10,000 signing incentive is also being offered to a select number of former city police officers. The commissioner says those who agree to rejoin the force will be job ready quicker than, for instance, a new hire. That takes about a year.
Baltimore County Schools has launched an investigation after the principal of Pikesville High School was allegedly recorded making racially charged comments.
That recording is circulating online and includes derogatory remarks about student staff. We want to warn you about that. But a state senator says it's his understanding that the principals union claims that recording was generated using artificial intelligence. Project Baltimore's Chris Papps has the latest on the investigation.
In an email to parents Wednesday afternoon, Baltimore County Schools Superintendent Dr. Marilyn Rogers called the statements in the recording deeply disturbing, but said they cannot confirm the veracity of the recording at this time.
I seriously don't understand why I have to constantly put up with these dumb here every day. Between these ungrateful black kids who can't test their way out of a paper bag.
That voice allegedly belongs to Pikesville principal Eric Eiswert, seen here on the school's website. The clip is 41 seconds long, beginning with racially charged language about black students and their academic performance. A few seconds later, the derogatory comments turn from students to staff members.
Should have never been hired. And don't let me get started on I'm going to drag his black out of here one way or another.
In the final seconds of the recording, the conversation turns again to the community.
And if I have to get one more complaint from one more Jew in this community, I'm going to join the other side. Kathy, I'm done.
We do not know who recorded the comments or the context in which they were made. It's unclear when or where the statements were recorded. But as you heard, the speaker addresses someone named Kathy. Parents tell us they believe that's Assistant Principal Kathy Albert, though we cannot confirm that. Baltimore County State Senator Charles Seidner released a statement saying, "After listening to the audio recording, I immediately reached out to Baltimore County Public Schools. It is my understanding that the principals union claims that this recording is AI generated. While our system entitles individuals to due process, the nature of these comments warrant an extensive investigation." Eiswert has worked for Baltimore County Schools since 1997, according to his online biography. Before moving to Pikesville 3 years ago, he was an assistant principal at Newtown High School. Before that, he spent 20 years at Catonsville as a teacher and assistant principal. Project Baltimore tried to get in touch with Eiswert at his home Wednesday.
My name's Chris Papst. I'm from FOX45 News. I was looking for Principal Eiswert.
The person who answered the door told us he was at work. When we called Pikesville High School, we were told the principal was not in the building. In an email Wednesday afternoon, Baltimore County School Superintendent Dr. Marilyn Rogers told parents, "We are taking this matter seriously and have launched an investigation. Once we have determined the facts, we will swiftly address this incident." Project Baltimore spoke with several Pikesville parents who did not want to go on camera, but told us the comments were disturbing. Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski has offered his administration's full support to BCPS during the investigation, saying in a statement, "Hate, discrimination, and prejudice have no place in our community, especially in our schools." I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Fox 45 News will stay on the story as the investigation continues to evaluate the authenticity of that recording. Well, Project Baltimore wants to hear from you. Do you have a story to share about your child's education or concern that you'd like our team to investigate? Call the tip line on your screen or send an email to projectbaltimore@foxbaltimore.com. You can also find us on social media. A Baltimore City councilman calls for stronger resources to curb youth crime. His demands after a 17-year-old was shot in his district.
And the mayoral race is heating up as candidates release their campaign finance reports. We dive into the numbers.
Think about, all the young people that live here in our community in reference to walking in the community and just not being safe.
Baltimore City Councilman Antonio Glover says city leaders need to take strong action against youth crime after a 17-year-old was shot in his district. The councilman has concern over the city's crime strategy and programs like Safe Streets.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live with the changes Glover wants to see. Keith?
Marion Kai, Councilman Glover says for his part, he is doing what he can to help curb juvenile crime in this district, including successfully fighting to reopen the Collington Square Rec Center, which had been closed for about 10 years, run now by the community, but tonight still concerned after the shooting of another juvenile. City Councilman Antonio Glover on Harwell Avenue near Erdman Avenue in East Baltimore, on the block in his district where someone shot a 17-year-old boy in the face.
Our community shouldn't have to deal with this type of violence in our community.
The shooting happened just before 7 o'clock Tuesday night. The boy lived. Police say he approached officers patrolling the area nearby on Bel Air Road, told them he'd been shot. One of the city's latest acts of gun violence involving juveniles, whether a perpetrator or, in this instance, a victim.
It's disturbing, and it's disturbing to the community. When I think of things like that, I think about, all the young people that live here in our community.
The gunfire erupted about a 5-minute walk from the Bel Air Edison Safe Street site, part of the city's featured crime intervention program. This location shut down in October amid an FBI investigation of staffers. Councilman Glover
We're putting monies into programming that are not working.
Not blaming Safe Streets for the shooting, but he is among city leaders with concerns recently about the organization's transparency, notably with LifeBridge Health Center for Help, which manages the Bel Air Edison location.
We need to take a closer look at any agency that are getting taxpayer dollars. You know, we're just asking to open the books, let us see what's going on, and if you could show us numbers and you could show us progress, and we continue to have those programs.
According to BPD's public crime dashboard, Glover's District 13 saw 22 homicides last year, 72 non-fatal shootings. As lawmakers return to Annapolis for this year's session, the councilman looking now to the Baltimore City delegation to address what many consider to be top thought: juvenile crime.
The bottom line is that we got to get it done in Annapolis. I don't know if it is stricter laws. What I do know is that I think monies need to go into more programming for our young people. That's where I stand.
Well, regarding the shooting of that 17-year-old boy, no word from police on what led up to the shooting, and so far tonight, no arrest. Well, live tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. This isn't the first time Antonio Glover has been critical of the Safe Streets program. Following the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, the city council held a number of hearings on the city's response to that shooting. During the hearings, city council members questioned the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement about the 5 mediations it says Safe Streets workers conducted and why those workers left the block party without telling police of potential threats. Glover wasn't satisfied with Monsi's answers.
I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a halt.
It's not clear what a mediation includes. Fox 45 News has asked to see a blank copy of the form used to evaluate mediations, but the Scott administration has refused to hand one over. It's also not clear how the hiring process works, who its employees are, or how Safe Streets keeps track of workers. You can find more on our investigation into the program on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
When it comes to juvenile crime concerns, we have heard from more than a dozen state's attorneys all across Maryland calling for changes to Maryland's juvenile crime laws. They're highlighting the Child Interrogation Protection Act, which states police can't question children without parental approval and an attorney present. It is designed to protect children's rights, but Howard County State's Attorney Rich Gibson says that shouldn't be the only consideration.
Our youth deserve extra protections. I'm not against giving them extra protections, but we have to act in ways that promote the public safety consistent with those extra protections.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Ivan Bates and Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Braveboy are pushing to increase probation for kids with guns. They are also asking DJS to notify the court when a young person violates home monitoring.
Senate President Bill Ferguson and other lawmakers say that they're going to take a closer look at the programs offered through the Department of Juvenile Services and whether they're effective. House Speaker Adrienne Jones says she'll consider tweaks to current juvenile laws, but stops short of naming any specifics when Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost pressed her for details.
Why not make larger changes?
I had to be. Not just in general, because we did some things all wrong. We had hearings, etc.
Right, but no laws were actually changed during those hearings.
But we have a bill that did not get passed, and that's what.
So what bill should we be looking for this session?
The bill that didn't get passed last time.
Which was what?
It's the juvenile justice bill. You'll see it when it comes out. It's going to be on the document. And I don't want to take from the person, it's a good bill.
Okay, but which bill is it? Which bill are you talking about?
Mackenzie Frost will be in Annapolis following every step of this year's legislative session over the next 3 months. You can watch all of her coverage on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
At midnight, as top mayoral candidates reveal how much financial support is behind their campaigns. Mayor Brandon Scott leads the way as former Mayor Sheila Dixon is trying to pick up support tonight in Roland Park. Dixon discussed a wide range of topics at tonight's meeting and meet and greet with voters. Fox 45's Vincent Hill joins us live with her message tonight. Vincent?
Yeah, Mary, Sheila Dixon says a lot of progress has been made when it comes to reducing crime in Baltimore, but there's still a lot of work to be done to make residents feel safe.
At the Roland Park Community Center, mayoral candidate Sheila Dixon speaking before a packed room of supporters.
What issues you have on your mind? Why am I doing this? Why am I running?
One of those issues, crime.
And the fact that people don't feel safe.
The last time people met in this room, former city state's attorney Marilyn Mosby faced some tough criticism.
You're essentially saying it's not your responsibility.
That's not what I said at all.
Yes,
you clearly didn't listen to what I said.
You're taking no responsibility for the last 7 years.
You clearly didn't listen to what I said.
Deflecting blame after deciding not to prosecute low-level crimes.
What you want to do is to attribute every problem of the city, a city being in crisis, like FOX45 to me.
Dixon says she sees things much different than Mosby did.
There's a quality of life crimes that are impacting most of us on a daily basis.
And it's not just the low-level crimes Dixon says she'll go after.
I've never had to drive down my driveway and look behind my back when I get out of my car. I've always got out of my car, got into the house. But now I have to look around.
Carjackings and stolen cars, something residents tell FOX45 they're beyond tired of.
This year, 2024, they need to get it together. Don't be going around stealing people's cars.
According to the latest BPD data, over 130 cars have been stolen so far this year and 8 reported carjackings. And while violent crimes seem to be declining,
I'm glad crime is going down. I'm glad murders are going down.
Dixon says there's still